Do you feel like fear is gripping your heart right now? God is saying, don't fear. What He has joined together, no one can break. This message is for you, not by chance, not by accident. You're here because heaven has something to confirm. Before we even go further, I want you to pause and write one prophetic word in the comments below. It could be sealed, it could be faith, it could be unbroken. That simple word becomes a declaration. You're not just commenting, you're prophesying over your own life. Now listen closely, because fear, when it comes, doesn't whisper gently, it storms in. It tells you lies, that time is running out, that distance has grown too wide, that someone else will take what is yours. But God is reminding you in this very moment that His promises are not fragile. His covenant is not paper thin. What He has sealed in heaven cannot be torn apart on earth. Think about this. In Matthew 19:6, Jesus said, "So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate." That wasn't just a verse for the wedding day. It's a commandment of permanence, a declaration of spiritual protection over divine unions. That word is alive, and it's for you right now. I know what you're feeling. Nights where you ask, "Lord, is this really from you? Did I hear you correctly? Why does it feel so delayed?" Those questions rise like waves, and the enemy tries to ride them into your mind. But here's the truth. Your delay is not denial. The waiting is not abandonment. It's divine timing arranging everything so that when the moment comes, it won't be stolen, it won't be fragile, it won't be broken. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever wondered why certain connections keep resurfacing in your heart, even when you try to bury them? Have you noticed how God keeps sending confirmations through scripture, through dreams, through little signs you can't explain? That's not random. That's heaven whispering, "Don't fear, I'm still in control. What I started, I will finish." And here's something that may shake you a little. Sometimes God allows the storm to test your faith, not to destroy you, but to anchor you. It's easy to believe when everything looks perfect. It's harder when silence stretches out for months. Yet in that silence, God is watching your heart. Are you clinging to His promise, or are you giving in to fear? That's the proving ground of faith. I want you to let this sink in. When God creates a bond, it's like two rivers merging into one. You can't tell where one starts and the other ends. They flow in the same direction, unstoppable, carrying everything with them. That is the picture of divine union. It doesn't matter what people say, what circumstances scream, or how the enemy tries to interfere. The rivers still flow together. And before this video ends, I will show you the exact sign God uses to confirm this kind of union for His chosen ones. But for now, I want you to take this step of faith. Write one word below that represents your hope. That comment becomes your seed. And if you need deeper clarity, I've linked a playlist in the description box filled with prophetic confirmations that will strengthen your spirit. Go there after this, because one message leads into another, like chapters in your own divine story. This is just the beginning. Stay with me, because the next part will reveal a deeper truth about why fear tries to attack right before your breakthrough. Fear always comes before fulfillment. That's why right when you're closest to the breakthrough, the pressure feels heavier, the doubts louder, the silence longer. The enemy knows he cannot break what God has joined, so he tries to break you instead. Your faith, your patience, your hope. If he can convince you to give up, he doesn't need to destroy the promise because you'll walk away from it yourself. But tonight, God is saying, don't fear, don't let go. The bond is sealed, and no hand can undo it. Let's pause here. Have you felt that? The moments where it feels like everything is slipping through your fingers? That's exactly when heaven is closest to completing the work. I want you to comment the word sealed right now. Not for me, for yourself. Every time your eyes fall on that word in the comments, it will remind you that what God sealed cannot be unsealed by man. Scripture reminds us in Isaiah 41:10, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's not just comfort, it's a covenant. He's telling you that even in your weakness, He's holding you steady, keeping the bond alive even when you can't see it. Think about Abraham. God gave him a promise, but years passed. He looked at his age, at Sarah's age, at the silence of heaven, and fear crept in. Yet the covenant stood. Time did not cancel it. Circumstances did not erase it. The promise was sealed, and it manifested at the appointed hour. That's your story too. Your promise may look delayed, but it is not denied. It is anchored in eternity, waiting to be revealed. And maybe right now you're asking, but why does God allow it to take this long? Why let me feel the weight of fear at all? Because pressure produces clarity. Waiting refines your faith. If everything happened instantly, you'd never see the depth of God's hand. You'd never recognize His fingerprints in the little confirmations along the way. And most of all, you wouldn't be prepared to protect the blessing when it comes. Here's the tension. The closer you are, the harder it feels. That's why some of you watching right now are on the edge of tears, wondering if you misheard God. But you didn't. You're simply standing in the gap between promise and fulfillment, and the gap is where faith grows. This is why He's saying, don't fear. What I joined, no one can break.
Let me give you a picture. Imagine a tree planted by the riverside. Storms come, winds tear through, floods rise. At the surface, branches may bend, leaves may fall, but the roots remain. And because of those roots, the tree stands again, season after season. That's your promise. The storms can't uproot it. The delays can't wither it. The covenant is rooted too deep. Before we move into the next chapter, let me leave you with this cliffhanger. There is one specific sign God always gives right before the manifestation of what He promised. It's subtle, but once you recognize it, you'll never doubt again. In the next part, I'll reveal what that sign is and how to recognize it when it shows up in your life. There's a moment right before the promise arrives where heaven releases a sign. It doesn't always look like what you expect. Sometimes it even comes wrapped in circumstances that seem the opposite of fulfillment. But if you pay attention, you'll recognize it. And once you recognize it, your faith will lock in, unshakable. That sign is alignment. Pieces suddenly shift into place in ways you couldn't force even if you tried. People you haven't heard from in months may reappear. Opportunities that were once blocked open without warning. Your spirit feels a quiet confirmation, not loud, not chaotic, but a stillness that whispers, "This is it." That's how you know the union God promised is approaching. Think about Joseph. Before his elevation in Egypt, he faced a pit, slavery, and a prison. Each one looked like the end, but each one was actually a step toward alignment. By the time Pharaoh called him, every detail was perfectly arranged. The same God who orchestrated Joseph's steps is orchestrating yours. And maybe you're noticing small shifts right now, dreams that feel more vivid, random scriptures appearing in front of you, a sermon that speaks directly into your situation. These are not coincidences. These are heaven's way of saying, stay the course, the time is near. Fear comes because the enemy sees the alignment too. But fear is the final distraction before breakthrough. Pause with me for a moment. Can you remember a time where everything looked like it was falling apart, but later you realized it was actually falling into place? That's how God works. Right before the fulfillment, He removes what doesn't belong, so the promise can stand without interruption. That pruning feels painful, but it's part of the process. Now I want you to declare something in the comments again. Write the word aligned. It's not just a comment, it's a prophetic declaration over your life. By writing it, you're agreeing with heaven that everything concerning your promise is falling into divine order. And as you type it, picture your situation aligning with God's will piece by piece. Scripture gives us this assurance in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. All things. That includes delays, disappointments, misunderstandings, even the silence. Nothing is wasted. Every detail is being folded into alignment. And here's the deeper truth. Alignment is not just about the other person, it's also about you. God doesn't just prepare the promise, He prepares you for the promise. He refines your patience, strengthens your faith, and clears away fear so you can stand in confidence when the fulfillment arrives. That's why the waiting feels heavy. It's stretching you to carry what's coming. Before I reveal the final key in the last chapter, let me leave you with this thought. If you're seeing signs of alignment, dreams, scriptures, subtle shifts, don't dismiss them. They are the markers of heaven pointing you forward. In the final part, I'll show you how to respond when the promise begins to manifest, and why your response matters as much as the promise itself. And don't forget, after this video, go to the playlist linked in the description. It's filled with messages like this, each one building on the other, designed to strengthen you through this journey. When the promise finally begins to manifest, your response becomes just as important as the promise itself. Many people think once it arrives, the story ends. But in truth, that's where the next chapter of your faith begins. God is saying, don't fear, because what He joined, no one can break. But you must walk into that fulfillment with the right heart, with faith steady, with gratitude overflowing. Here's why. Fear will still try to linger. Even when the blessing stands before you, the enemy will whisper, what if it doesn't last? What if something goes wrong? But this is where you remind yourself of Matthew 19:6, where Jesus declared, what God has joined together, let no one separate. You don't argue with fear, you silence it with truth. The truth that heaven already sealed this bond. When the connection comes back into place, when alignment becomes reality, you'll feel the weight of every prayer, every tear, every night you waited. You'll see that none of it was wasted. The waiting shaped you. The storm deepened you. The silence trained your ear to recognize His voice more clearly. And when it happens, you will stand not as the same person who began the journey, but as someone refined and strengthened for the blessing. Think of Ruth. She lost, she wandered, she waited. But in the perfect time, her Boaz appeared. Not because she forced it, not because she chased it, but because she positioned herself in obedience. And when the moment came, she was ready to step into it. That's how you must be. Ready, steady, certain that what God sealed cannot be stolen. I want you to picture this. Two puzzle pieces that seem so far apart finally come together. They don't just touch, they lock. And when they lock, nothing can separate them without breaking the whole picture. That's what divine union looks like. You may have felt like a piece out of place, waiting for the other part, but when God moves, the picture is completed. Right now, I want you to take an act of faith. Comment one final word that resonates with you from this message. It could be faith, promise, sealed, aligned, or another word God is stirring in your heart. That word is not just interaction, it's a prophetic marker over your life. Speak it out in the comments and let heaven record it. And listen, don't just stop here. What you've heard today is one part of a bigger prophetic journey. In the description below, I've linked a playlist filled with messages like this, each one building on the last, designed to strengthen your faith and guide you into the